Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I am so glad you're here with me today. As you can see, I'm in my new space. It's kind of a work in progress, still figuring out my filming angles and everything like that, so if you'll please bear with me, that would be awesome. As you can see, I did put all my books away already, at least for now. They're in the spots that they're going in. I could have done a video with you guys so that you could watch me put my books away. I didn't. My room is smaller, and so I needed the space to move around. Just quick channel update there. Welcome to my new space. This is the new Bookish Chaz studio. So the topic of today's video is loose ends in Westeros. That's right, we are talking all things A Song of Ice and Fire, specifically the loose ends that have yet to be tied up. So that means that this may be spoilery for those of you that have not read A Song of Ice and Fire yet. If that's you, step away right now, because the rest of the video is going to be dealing with certain details in A Song of Ice and Fire that are still mysteries, okay? Alright, are you still here? Alright, so we're going to get right to the topic of this video. I'm going to put my eyes on like I always do. And, hi. The first and probably most obvious loose end that I want to talk about today is the origin of Jon Snow. As you know, if you read the books, Jon Snow is supposedly the illegitimate child of Ned Stark, or Eddard Stark. And it seems pretty clear early on in the story that there is more to his origins than we are led to believe on the surface. There's a lot of theories out there. The television show put forth one theory and ran with that to finish the series. I do think that the origin of Jon Snow being a Targaryen is very likely, or at least some form of nobility. It's hard to tell at this point. We just don't know. But what does seem clear is that Eddard is trying to protect Jon Snow, and so we're just kind of left waiting for that. And if we get the next two books, I'm sure we will find out more details on the origins of Jon Snow. So let's move on to the next one on this list, and that would be Lady Stoneheart. A lot of fans were really disappointed that the Game of Thrones TV series did not even approach the topic of Lady Stoneheart. That was not even a part of the plot in the show. But as you might be aware if you've read the books, Lady Stoneheart is the person formerly known as Catelyn Stark, but she has been resurrected, so she's kind of like a zombie in a sense. Although she's not a zombie, like she still has all her cognitive functioning and everything. There's so much mystery. She's kind of like a specter lurking around certain corners in the books now, and kind of watching over her family still and everything. So it's going to be really interesting to see where that storyline goes, because we just barely get glimpses of Lady Stoneheart here and there in the books that we've got so far. And I have a feeling that George R. R. Martin has some big plans for Lady Stoneheart. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe she's just going to be kind of a forgotten character, or, you know, just this ghost that people keep seeing lurking around corners. But I'm really curious to find out about Lady Stoneheart. Alright, so we're moving on to the next one, and this is a big one, guys. A lot of fans are wondering the same thing as I am. Where exactly did Daenerys Targaryen's dragon eggs come from? And there have been a lot of theories posted of where her eggs came from and how they ended up in Pentos and things like that. So I'm very curious about that as well. It's a minor plot point, yes, but it may have more significance in the plot depending on where they did come from. Because, maybe there are other dragon eggs stashed away somewhere that we don't know about. maybe there are more than just the 3 dragons that Daenerys has herself. We just don't know. There's so many possibilities there. It really makes you wonder, could this world expand and have brand new dragons at some point? So, right now, it's all conjecture. But I'm very, very curious to see where that plot thread goes. So, we're going to move on. And we're going to tackle the topic of warging. Now, the books don't talk a whole lot about this, but it is very clear that certain bloodlines have the ability to skinwalk, basically, to transfer their consciousness into the mind of an animal, to walk where that animal walks, to eat where that animal eats. And the show completely bypassed that, of course. But the books bring it up here and there. It's just like little nuggets, and it makes me very curious. Maybe you're not curious about that, but I am. And one of the reasons I am is because of a personal theory of mine that I haven't really heard many people talk about. So I'm not sure if this is just my own theory or not. Toward the end of A Dance of Dragons, we get a scene where Jon Snow is supposedly killed. And of course, Game of Thrones show took that a completely different direction. But I think maybe Jon Snow isn't going to be alive in the series anymore. We all know George loves to kill off his characters. But maybe he lives on. And I think he might live on in Ghost. And the reason I say that is that chapter where Jon Snow is stabbed repeatedly, he says one word: Ghost. What if Jon Snow becomes a part of Ghost? Whether temporarily, if he is still alive, we don't know, or maybe permanently. But I think he has such a strong connection with Ghost, and he probably has some bloodlines tied with the Starks, whether it's Eddard Stark or Eddard's sister or whatever that comes out to be. That's just my personal opinion. I think Jon is going to be skinwalking with Ghost for a time. Okay? Just take it or leave it. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me why I'm wrong. You can tell me, oh, that's a great theory. I've just never wanted to speak my mind about it, but I believe the same way. If you do, that would be awesome. We can have our own little warging fan club. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. And that, guys, is the Three-Eyed Raven. There's so much mystery in Westeros and so many unique and interesting characters. And I really want to find out more about the Three-Eyed Raven. I want to know how this person first got connected to all the trees, because in the books he the tree branches are all growing through him and everything, and so he's become this hybrid creature of sorts. And of course he's got an inner sight, he's got some magic there, and I'm very curious to find out if we are going to learn his origins. And I'm also really curious to see how his relationship develops with Bran Stark. And I also have a suspicion that he's tied in some way to the others. Not like working with the others, but just tied in some way to where he has a special connection, so he knows what they're doing, and they can maybe see some things that he sees as a result of that connection. And I'm also curious to see how that all connects with the Children of the Forest, which is another loose end that I'd love to see tied up, in that we get more information about the Children of the Forest as well. But there's just so much mystery surrounding the Three-Eyed Raven that I just need more, guys. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. And that, guys, is Cold Hands. I think pretty much all fans believe that Cold Hands is Benjen Stark. there's just that sneaking suspicion because early on in the book, Benjen goes missing, and the fact that he's missing keeps being brought up in the book. So that tells me that we're not done with his character. And so all of a sudden, the Night's Watch happens on this character, riding a stag. Something has obviously happened to him. He's not quite dead, but he's also not fully alive. And he just goes by cold hands. So I'm with pretty much all the fans on this theory that he is Benjen Stark. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, that's confirmed. I don't think it's quite confirmed yet. Not in the books anyway. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. And that would be interesting if we have somewhat of a family reunion of sorts with Bran. And if Jon is alive, maybe he'll meet up with Uncle Benjen as well. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on in that loose end. So yes, very excited to find out more about Cold Hands. Okay guys, so we're going to keep moving on to the others. And of course they're known as the White Walkers in the TV show, if you follow the TV show. And most of the time they're just called the others in the books. And they're used in flippant curses by people, oh, the others take you, And so a very mysterious group of beings. George R. R. Martin has said that he based the others on the Sidhe from Irish and Celtic mythology, and they are just this terrifying presence in the books. I mean, they were in the show as well, but not nearly as much, because in the books it's more subtle. They're just kind of there in the back of your mind. People know they exist, but most people have not been unfortunate enough to see them, and those who have seen the others have not lived to tell about it. So, I mean, right from the beginning, we get a couple of guys who are unfortunate enough to come into the territory of the others, and their remains are found later in a ritualistic pattern, and no sign of the killers. And I'm just so in awe of the way the others are written in the books, because it's just this eerie, creepy feeling of being constantly watched by this group of ancient beings, whether they are the first men or a completely different race altogether, and how were they created, where did they come from. There are so many answers left unsaid for this group of creatures. And so I just can't wait to find out more about that. I have a feeling we're going to get that in The Winds of Winter, because the title just sounds like it should be talking about the others, because they live in the frozen wastelands of winter, and winter comes with them and everything. So it just makes sense that The Winds of Winter would deal more exclusively with the others. And George has already said that the others will play a more prominent role in the final two books. So we know we're going to get more information on them, and I just can't wait. I'm so excited. Okay, so we're going to move on to another one here, and that is Aegon. So in the books, there is an Aegon Targaryen, and fans are really divided as to whether or not this is the real Aegon Targaryen, or if he's just an actor playing a role and somebody has hired him to play a role to be able to stake their claim on the throne. And so in that case, he would be a fake Aegon, or a lot of people call him Fagon because of that. They think he's fake. I don't think the books are really clear on whether or not he's the real Aegon Targaryen or if he's a fake. So we will see what happens with that. Hopefully we'll get more information on that in the books. And if Jon Snow does end up being a Targaryen, is he going to have the name that the TV show gave him, or is he going to be a completely different Targaryen? So there's so much up in the air with this. We just We just don't know. But as of right now, there is another Targaryen on the scene besides Daenerys. And I really want to see what happens with that plot thread, because that really throws the throne into question. And, you know, if he's real, do he and Daenerys end up getting married and reigning together? There's just so much, right? There's just so much. Because there is that thing of Targaryens marrying each other and reigning over the kingdom and everything. And I think that's part of the reason fans are thinking that he is a fake, because if somebody can get their own person in there claiming to be a Targaryen and then marry the queen, they've got instant access to the throne. So there's so much there. We don't have time to explore it here, but let me know your theories. I'd love to find out what you think. Okay guys, so we're going to move on to the final loose end here, and that is, who wins the throne? I think we all want to get an ending to the series. We all want to know who sits on the throne. I personally believe we're going to get the Winds of Winter. I don't know if we're going to get a Dream of Spring. I certainly hope we do, but even if we don't, I'll be happy with this series. It's a wonderful book series. I'm happy with what we've got, but I want more. George, please, I want more. I want to know who wins the throne. And, you know, if he's not going to finish the books, I wouldn't mind him putting out an article talking about who ends up on the throne. I wouldn't be unhappy with that. I really wouldn't. But anyway, in his mind, he's planning to finish the books, so we're just going to deal with that. But we all want to know who sits on the Iron Throne. And I would personally like Daenerys Targaryen to sit on the Iron Throne. If there is another Aegon and, you know, they end up getting together and ruling together, I would love for that to happen as well. I'd be totally cool with that. The show does take it one direction, and I do find it kind of poetic the way the show did it, and I have a sneaking suspicion it might actually be George's ending because of how poetic it is. And I'm just going to say it, so this is a spoiler for the show. If you have not watched the show, feel free to skip ahead. I've got timestamps in the description below, but we're going to go ahead with it and talk about the fact that the show has Bran Stark ruling over the Seven Kingdoms. The reason I think that is poetic is because all the way back at the beginning, Bran had his life torn away from him because of a fall and is now a cripple and has to be pushed along in a chair with wheels. So I find it very poetic that someone who was crippled would come so far as to be the final ruler over the Seven Kingdoms. I just think that's really beautiful. And I do have a suspicion that that is George's ending. But I'm also really hoping for a Targaryen to sit the throne again. I just am. It just feels right to have a descendant of Aegon the Conqueror on the throne. I guess we'll have to wait and see in the next 2 books, right? So that's all I want to talk about today. There are so many loose ends in Westeros. If I were to make a video all about them, it would take forever. This would be just a really long video, and you guys don't want to sit here for an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there, but I'm just super excited to see where things go. A Song of Ice and Fire is my favorite book series of all time, and at least currently. So let me know some of your fan theories and loose ends that you would like to see tied up in the series, and I would love to have a dialogue with you about this series. If you love it as much as I do, we can have just a great conversation. So I'm going to end it there. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you'll read more books, and I will talk with you soon. And I'd like to give a special shout out to my patrons. I really appreciate all you do for me and all you do to support the channel.